Throughout President Joe Biden's first 6 months in office, Americans have generally viewed the COVID-19 pandemic as the country's most pressing problem. But as communities reopen, vaccination rates rise, and new COVID-19 cases fall, is Biden actually getting any credit for his handling of the pandemic? On the one hand, yes. Americans rate Biden's response to the pandemic quite positively, especially compared with former President Donald Trump's. According to 538's average, 63% approve of Biden's handling of the coronavirus, while only 39% approved of Trump's when he left the White House. That said, despite the importance of COVID-19 to voters, Biden's overall job approval rating has never come close to his approval rating for dealing with the pandemic, which suggests that some sections of the public approve of his work on the coronavirus but not of his job performance altogether. The crossover between Americans' views of a president's performance on specific issues and Americans' views of that president's performance overall is messy, inconsistent, and complicated by bipartisanship. Voters might largely approve of Biden's handling of COVID-19, but the coronavirus clearly isn't the only issue that matters to them. And more importantly, partisanship tends to override most things when it comes to a president's overall standing. Currently, Biden's approval rating sits at about 53%, according to 538's approval tracker, about 8 percentage points lower than his approval on handling the coronavirus, and that gap has mostly widened since February. So what's the deal? Biden's handling of the pandemic polls far better than not only his overall rating, but also every other commonly asked issue question. Take a late April poll from CNN, which found his job approval at 53% among adults. 66% approved of Biden's handling of the coronavirus, but his approval for handling the economy was at 51%, right around his overall approval. And Biden's approval for handling immigration was 41%, far lower than his overall standing. That pattern, approval on the coronavirus higher, the economy close to his overall standing, and immigration well below, has shown up in most polls throughout his tenure. Around 1/3 of Republicans approve of Biden's handling of the pandemic in 538's tracker, but less than 20% of Republicans and sometimes only around 10% approve of his overall performance. So clearly, the credit Biden gets from some Republicans on the pandemic doesn't really show up in how they rate his performance as a whole. That's partly down due to their disapproval of his approaches to handling other important issues. For instance, only 4% of Republicans in the CNN poll approved of Biden on immigration. And Republicans also tend to care more about immigration than Democrats do, skewing the average. Ultimately, people are just less likely to say they approve of a president from the opposing party and more likely to say they approve of a president from their own. That's partisanship. It can push Republicans away from Biden despite their approval of his work on the pandemic, or it can keep Democrats in line even if they dislike how he's handling an issue like immigration. Furthermore, the tendency for partisanship to override issue considerations may actually be getting stronger too. Historically, economic performance was one of the strongest predictors of presidential approval, but that has diminished as voters have become more likely to filter their views of the economy through their partisan identity. The disconnect between economic ratings and overall approval was evident throughout Trump's term too. Throughout his presidency, he tended to poll better on the economy than on most other issues, and notably better than on his job approval overall. For a comparison with Biden, we looked back at economic approval polling during the first 6 months of both Trump and Barack Obama's presidencies. Trump's approval on the economy just barely broke even during that period. But on economic matters, his net approval rating, the percentage of people who approved minus the percentage who disapproved, far exceeded his overall standing, as this table shows. By comparison, Biden and Obama tended to poll worse, and Obama a lot worse, on their handling of the economy compared to their overall job approval numbers. Trump actually got a little bit of credit from Democrats on the economy. In late April 2017, a CNN poll found that Trump's approval on the economy at 49%, with 16% of Democrats approving. Obviously, that's not a lot, but it was twice the number who approved of Trump overall in the survey, 8%. As for present-day Joe Biden, in conclusion, he is certainly getting some credit for his response to the coronavirus pandemic. And if those good marks last, that could help Democrats in the 2022 midterms. Partisanship aside, handling a big issue well in the eyes of most voters can certainly be beneficial. It helps in terms of overall popularity and electorally. But as described throughout this video, the effect is largely snubbed by partisanship and by other issues. That's all for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed it. Please make sure to follow EP Official on all social media shown on screen and linked in the description down below. Also, make sure to comment your thoughts and opinions in the comment section, and please hit the like button if you like the video as well. Subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you all so much for watching. Check out more content from the channel here, and as always, tune in next time. EP out.